In Kiowa County, along the North Fork of the Red River, between Flat Top Mountain and Soldier's Peak, is a large 1.5 mile long canyon known historically as Canyon Diablo, or Devil's Canyon. Like most stories in Oklahoma lore, information concerning Devil's Canyon is found in fragments. When I think of Devil's Canyon, I think of Spanish conquistadors wearing shiny armor, Mexican miners, and the Native American presence. Over the years, smelting equipment, an ancient church, a cannon made of brass, and many other artifacts have all been found here. Stories of Spanish ship treasure are also synonymous with the canyon. Initially, this area was called home by the Wichita Indians. One of the prominent Wichita sub-tribes were the Talvayas. In the 1830s, the principal village of the Wichitas was near Devil's Canyon. I briefly mentioned the Talvayas in my Empire of the Summer Moon video when I discussed the Battle of Twin Villages. Francisco Vasquez de Coronado was thought to have passed through this area in 1541 on his search for the 7 cities of gold, also known as Cibola. When he stopped to check out interesting areas, all he found at each stop was yet another Indian village. It's unknown when the first Spaniards set foot in the mountains, and while evidence has been left behind to reinforce the stories, there's much more evidence pointing to Mexican inhabitants. Mexican ciboleros and comancheros called these mountains the Sierra Humanos. Mining continued in the Wichitas with slight success until the fall of 1700, when Comanches and other tribes drove the miners out with force. Simon Cockrell was among one of the first documented white men to enter the Wichita Mountains. He and a party of 24 established a trading post in May of 1833, about 1.5 miles below the confluence of the North and South Forks of the Red River, here in present-day Tillman County. William Bean led Cockrell to a Kiowa village about 75 miles above the trading post. The village, probably Wichita tribe, was in a valley on the northeast side of the river and was known to be beautiful and stretched out over 1 mile and filled with cultivated acreage. Cockrell also witnessed non-natives living along here in the Wichitas, 40 miles up the North Fork from the post in Devil's Canyon. They appeared to be miners by profession and referred to them as Spaniards. At the trading post in the early 1830s, Indians came by the hundreds for trades. 4 miles downstream from the fort at the mouth of the creek, they built a ferry to move supplies quicker. A year after Cockrell took off to join Sam Houston's army, the 1st Regiment of the United States Dragoons, which consisted of about 180 soldiers under Colonel Henry Dodge, marched into Devil's Canyon on its first peace mission on the Great Plains. When the troops left Fort Gibson on June 21, 1834, there were 500. During the journey south, summer heat and sickness took a major toll and over 100 died. George Catlin, the famous painter of the Indians, fell just short of the Wichita's camp and missed the first encounter between the U.S. soldiers and the Talvayas. Colonel Dodge's troops found the Wichitas at the mouth of Devil's Canyon, where over 2,000 of them were living in hundreds of grass lodges. At this meeting on July 21st, the Dragoons traded a captive Wichita child for a Kiowa child captured weeks before during the Cutthroat Gap Massacre, which is covered here in this video. By July 24, 1834, thousands more armed and mounted Wichitas, Comanches, and Kiowas gathered to parley with Dodge near their camp, about 1 mile from Devil's Canyon on the south bank of the North Fork. Old buffalo hunter J.C. Settles mentioned talking with a Spaniard that mentioned a couple of fights. In the first one, the Mexicans won, and the next one the Indians won. He mentioned mines that had been covered by big boulders. He believed he found one of the mines, 6 miles upstream from Devil's Canyon and 2.5 miles west of the North Fork. The ancient town in Devil's Canyon was known as Spanish Town. A cave near the ruins held large Spanish crucibles and tons of ash. The pit of ash contained iron, human skulls, other bones, and even knives. A couple of sites were examined, the Mexican site the farthest west and 1/2 mile east, the Indian village that was visited by the Dragoons. During slight excavations, buffalo bones, scraps of copper, and brass were found. An archaeologist wasn't used, and to this day, excavations haven't since resumed. Legends handed down by old Kiowa tribal members state that they found a mine being worked by Spaniards, and they killed the Spaniards after they gathered up roughly 50 burro loads of gold. It was later hidden and only the chiefs knew where it was at. Many people, such as Olin Talley of Hobart, searched unsuccessfully for gold their entire lives. Another story passed down through time is that of a group of Mexicans that tried to retrieve the treasure their ancestors had buried. They thought they were close, and the leader sent 2 young boys to a nearby trading post to gather supplies. Shortly after leaving, the boys heard screams and turned back only to see a large band of Indians attacking the camp. When they returned, everyone was killed or had been taken prisoner. This story was also corroborated by G.W. Horn, who was a minor and prominent citizen of Lawton. He had found knives in dugouts during his exploration of the canyon. No gold, however. A German named Mark Sauerberg operated a saloon at Luger and talked to a Mexican miner who stated he worked on a mine on the west side of King Mountain, and he was absolutely certain the treasure had been buried there. And, in yet another story, a 105-year-old Indian woman swore that the gold taken during the massacre was buried on the west side of Twin Mountains near modern-day Tom Steed. Is this possibly related to the story of the Twin Mountains cave I talk about in my Mythical Cave video? Another legend states that a cave near the canyon holds treasures from a small Spanish ship that ferried up the North Fork to the mouth of the canyon. The gold was stored and sealed in the cave, and the ship's anchor was left hanging outside to mark the site. Supposedly, this rusty weight has been seen at various times. At the mouth of Devil's Canyon, a lot of mysterious carvings were found on trees and such, like turtles, sombreros, arrows, and Spanish helmets. Artifacts have been found over the years. Those include swords, knives, sheep bells, spurs, buttons, and even an 1849 Colt. All of the land around Devil's Canyon was homesteaded in 1901. Since then, the canyon has been strictly locked down. Majority of the canyon itself is on the isolated eastern portion of Quartz Mountain State Park and is surrounded by private property. Maybe we can all get a closer look at the canyon one of these days. Some aged Indians say the devil himself guards the Spanish gold buried beneath skeletons dressed in heavy, shining armor.